Hey guys, Nomus RC. So we got in a really kind of unique upgrade for the XMAXX. Something that I think that it should have came with stock because the spot is even there and available. It's really weird. But now that I have this huge mod 1.5 gearing, I haven't noticed any slop, but I want to support the spur gear shaft a bit more. The shaft that your Cush drive and spur gear are on. So GPM actually makes something for this specifically. And this is it right here. And what this is, it's a little bit different shaft. So you'll still use all the same parts that are on your current spur gear shaft, but the shaft itself you will replace. And then at the end of the shaft that's right by the motor, you'll actually have a support and an extra third bearing. So instead of just 2 bearings holding your spur, you'll actually have 3. So first thing that we'll actually do is get this metal piece out of here that's supporting our spur gear and shaft. Mine's aluminum, and I specifically got aluminum to help give me more support at the spur gear. These are default plastic, and they can definitely get play in them right where they hold the bearings. They'll start getting stretched out, and then they don't hold your bearings very well anymore, and then they actually create your spur gear stripping. There's a lot of things in an XMAXX that can make a spur gear strip. This is one of the main components. The Cush drive is number 1. And number 2 is these little grooves that are for the bearings get worn out on the plastic one. Let's go ahead and grab our spur gear and shaft out of here. So the main difference is it has some material chipped away at the tip here. And what that's for, so down in here, I'm going to use the shaft to point it out. Do you see that slot right there? That's the end of your spur, that slot right there. And it's just an empty slot. So GPM has made this little bearing block that actually slides right down in that right there, and then that gives you your third support. So let's get the spur gear shaft all assembled with the Cush drive and everything on there. And I'm actually going to do a special little thing to the Cush drive as well. So first we would put one of the bearings onto here just like so, and then we would slip our spur gear assembly and Cush drive assembly over top of it, right? Now myself personally, you can see I run a really thin, not quite as thin as a shim, washer inside there. And the reason that I do that is so that all of this winds up being super tight and stiff so that there's no slop. So we got our pin in there, then we'll actually slip the Y-shaped piece down on top of that, right? Just like that. And then this is actually where your Cush drive goes. So when your truck is slamming gears, this thing is flopping around inside here. And then you have these little rubber stops. This is actually what they refer to as the cushion that go into these open areas that this thing runs into. But personally, I don't like that. The extra added thing that I'm going to do here. So a M4 12mm grub screw, right? These right here fits perfectly in there. So what you do is you take it and you shove it all the way to one side like this. And then I personally put another washer on it right there on the top, an extra washer. And then we can put our cap back on. Okay, now we have the cap installed on there and we have some drive shafts still sticking out, and that's actually going to fit into this new little bearing block. So let's go ahead and get the idler gear on the back. So all that you do here is put a pin through, right? Take your idler gear, and this interacts with the center differential. Straight cut gears. Drop that right down onto there. And then one more bearing actually goes in the rear. And then that's it, guys. You have a 100% solid Cush drive and spur gear shaft. And we have no more play in there, because the problem, in my opinion, the reason that I'm making this all rigid and not able to move, especially with this new gargantuan motor, right? It wears out Cush drives in a couple of runs. When those get worn, then your gear has slop in it. And you do not want that, or you're going to mess up your spur. I highly doubt that you're going to strip out this mod 1.5, but if you're not using mod 1.5, that slop that the Cush drive will give after a while is very detrimental to these things. I have blown many a spur gears because of off-balanced shafts, because of that thing that I showed you that wears earlier, or because of the Cush drive being junk. And then you just blow your spur and pinion, and then you spend, what, 30, 40 bucks to get it all back. Really stupid. And then if you don't assess the problem right away, you blow it again, and there goes another 30, 40 bucks. So this is actually what it's going to look like going in there, right? Okay, so we got it all back in there. You can see the third bearing support up front. I did have to use a Dremel and shave on this motor mount a little bit, but you wouldn't have to on the stock one. And then we have our two bearings in the back. Let's go ahead and get our aluminum cap back installed. She's all mounted up and perfect. That is going to make a massive difference, especially with this giant horsepower motor. I really did not like my spur gear just being supported by two bearings, and then the spur is just hanging off there doing God knows what. So really awesome, guys. Super helpful. And honestly, I think that anybody that has spur gear problems, even if your Cush drive is completely fucked, I think that this would keep it from destroying your spur gear. So this, in my opinion, is a very much needed upgrade for the XMAXX. And the XRT. The XRT also has that same spot right there. As always, guys,